Neeraj, can you please mute yourself? We can hear. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. Okay, I hope you can see my screen. Uh, so welcome everyone. This is the session on international student recruitment and outreach. This is our first knowledge sharing session for the Outreach Collective. Thank you so much, everybody that has taken time out of their busy schedule. Uh, on behalf of the Outreach Collective, I would like to welcome all of you. Uh, the session is, I'll say, it's more of an informal engagement or an interaction between all of us. As I said when I planned this session, that there are lot of information that is there in everybody's head. Everybody is an expert in his or her own field, but unfortunately we have not been able to have a platform where we could all share our experiences and all talk to each other about what you felt when you were doing a particular engagement in international markets. So today's session will be about sharing our expertise in those international markets that we have traveled to. This session, when I was planning, it was more from the perspective of Indian universities, Indian outreach professionals who are trying to recruit students from international markets. But as the days progressed, a lot of colleagues reached out to me and said that they were interested in doing more than just international student recruitment. They also were looking at articulation agreements, university tie-ups in different markets. So I said, probably we'll take this opportunity also to discuss about the same. But my experience, what has been my experience in international markets, to sum up, uh, first slide that I thought I will share with all of you is how not to do international outreach, right? That is the most important part. We have all been told there are huge potential of students that are coming from uh, various markets. I mean, South Asia, Middle East, Africa, whichever part of the world, whichever vendor wants to reach out to you, he will tell you, okay, this is the place that you should be at, but there are only limited resources, and every proposal that comes your way sounds very exciting. But before you jump on that flight or before you run to your management for them to sign your travel bills, I'll suggest this is the four or five, say 5 or 6 ways that you should not be doing international outreach. The first reason for you to not do international outreach is that you're going to a country without having any insights on the international student mobility trends from that region. And international student mobility trends, I mean, in terms of not only your country, but what is the current uh, student numbers that are going to different countries around the world. Your country, definitely it has to be on a higher side, but also apart from that, current what are the current global economic, socio-economic scenarios that can impact the international student mobility from that part of the world. You should not go to a country without having a multiple year strategic engagement plan and objectives in place. That goes without saying. Uh, if you think that you can go to a country for one time a year for a couple of days and get, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 students, I'm sorry to say that was not going to happen. You should always have a multiple year strategic engagement plan. Yes, just going to an expo, sitting there for 2 or 3 days will not help in recruiting any number of international students. To be really honest, in my early years when I was doing international outreach, I used to do the same mistake. But I'll strongly suggest that you don't do it now. Going to a country thinking of having immediate success, that is not going to happen. Again, it's where goes without saying that you go to a country and you think that you will start having immediate success without having a plan in place, not going to happen. Going to a country without having done a due SWOT analysis of your own institution, the courses that are offered at your institutions, the price points that you have, the competition that you have from your own country in that market. If you're not doing that SWOT analysis of your institution, you should not be doing international outreach. Please do national outreach first. Going to a country just because you got a university expo invite is actually also a very bad way of doing things. And going to a country without having your internal international student ecosystem in place is also not the right way of doing things. I mean, again, early days when I used to do international outreach, I had huge success. But once I got those international students on campus, it became really difficult to manage them because we didn't think about once they were here in India or on our campus, what kind of resources they will require to flourish on the campus. And we didn't have the ecosystem in place, which really led to our subsequent yearly outreach to those countries being impacted because the initial set of students that came were not really happy. So, I mean, these are the initial set of thoughts that I had on how not to do international outreach. I love to talk in detail about them, but quickly from an Indian institution perspective, I have a couple of slides that you should all be aware of. Uh, so there is a report that comes out uh, every year. It used to, but ever since last couple of years, this report has not been published. But it's called the All India Survey of Higher Education Report 2020. Last time it was published for 2020. It has fantastic data on the entire education system of our country. It is released by Ministry of Education, so it's a authentic report. I think one of the best data points on the entire education system in the country, but it also has up-to-date numbers on inbound international students for India. So all the international admissions outreach specialists should definitely go through this report while looking at recruiting students for India. We have a total number of about 49,348 international students that came to India in 2020. And these are the countries that they were coming from. So if you see the five, give me a second, I have people coming in. I have to add them, but I'll tell you. Okay, sorry. So, so I mean, these are the countries that you have students coming in from. You have students coming in. The best or the biggest market for India is Nepal, where you have 13,880 students coming in. That is closely followed by Afghanistan, but unfortunately, I don't think this number will stand in coming years because we all know the political situation in Afghanistan, which is not stable. But at one point of time in 2020, Afghanistan was our second biggest recruitment market, and then Bangladesh, Bhutan, and Sudan. I mean, these are the five markets that we have. I mean, I can't go through the numbers in detail, but I mean, if you sum it up, South Asia is a very big market for India, given the proximity of the culture and the land borders that we have with these countries. In Africa, interestingly, Sudan, I think that is very rarely talked about as a country, origin source country for students, is number five. Most of the students, if you see the classification of the programs that they are coming from, almost 75% of the students come to India for undergraduate programs, which is a big number. Only about 16 or 16.5%, 16.6% of the students come for postgraduate programs. So that means if you have, if you're looking at international student recruitment, undergraduates are more in number coming to India, and then you have different programs and different students coming in for different kind of programs, but undergraduate is first. And then the courses. I mean, this is very interesting for you to understand. So if you are a university that offers a BTech, science, engineering, pharma, those kind of programs, then you have a very large captive audience within this student body that is coming to India. On the other hand, if you have programs more towards social sciences or liberal arts or other aspects of education, then you may find it very difficult. So what kind of courses you have also should be a key factor in you deciding to go to international markets or not going to international markets. Our top states which are hosting international students in India, again, there are certain cities in India which are known as international student hubs. I can talk about Bangalore, I can talk about Pune, I can talk about Delhi NCR, and even to some extent cities of Punjab, which have large number of international students for various reasons. Uh, so you need to be also, if you are in either of these states or cities, then you would already have a certain number of international students coming in. But then that also means that there will be already competition for you waiting in that regions. So these are the numbers of international students coming to various states or cities. I mean, I'll say it basically it will be, if you go down to numbers, it will be certain cities where you have the maximum number of international students coming to in India. So this was just my initial thoughts on international student recruitment. Uh, may I now have any comments or anything that you want to have? Want to share? Anybody wants to share any comments? Or before we do that, why not I quickly go to Luca. Luca had some interesting perspective from Australian universities angle and their approach to internationalization of their campuses. Luca, if I can bring in you in, and you can probably introduce yourself and then share what your perspective from Australian universities.
Thank you, Ankur, and lovely to see you all. For those who I met in person in Delhi or Bangalore last week and the week before, thank you so much for being so hospitable with me. I had the time of my life. My name is Luca. I represent an education technology solution, the Ambassador platform. But before then, I was working in international student recruitment at three very large Australian universities. One was Deakin University, where I also completed my MBA, RMIT, also in Melbourne, and the University of Queensland. So I bring in the perspective of Australia. But I wanted to say this, which I think is very, very important. India has always been seen from Australia, the US, and Canada as a source market as Indian students going to those countries. I think it's time to shift the paradigm a little bit. I think you have a fantastic value proposition, which is the quality of your education, but also what I call the everything else. So the culture, the food, the history, a very vast land with so many different, there's almost many countries within India. So you should not underestimate the value proposition that you can offer to international students well beyond the countries that Ankur just showed. I don't like PowerPoints, but I prepared 3 slides, and I promise they are very quick just because I'm a visual person and they can help you contextualize where I'm coming from. So if I can share my screen very briefly. And amazingly, those slides are very similar to what Ankur has showed you. Can I just check that you all see the Australian perspective in international outreach?
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So just to give you some context, there are a lot of international students in Australia. In 2019, there were 758,000. And my first message to you is international student recruitment or international outreach takes a lot of time. We didn't start with 758,000 in Australia. We started with 100 from China. And then over 40 years, we got to that huge number. If you think that Australia has 26 million people, which is roughly the population of Delhi, having almost 1 million international students is an incredible number. Of those, about half, 450, are actually commencing students, so first-year students, whereas all the others are second, third, and fourth-year students. They come from 150 countries, but there is low diversity. As Ankur suggested, diversity is important. Quantity is important, but quality is even more important. You don't want to rely on a single country, whether that be Nepal or in case of Australia, China, because if something happens in that market, you are absolutely starved. You have no more international students. So you need to be able to recruit from many different countries. In 2019, our top 5 countries were China, India, Nepal, Brazil, and Vietnam, closely followed by a number of South Asian and Southeast Asian countries. And the beauty about international recruitment in Australia was that we recruited students not just in universities, but also in VET, so vocational education training colleges, ELICOS, English language international courses for overseas students. So a lot of international students will come to Australia to study English first for 5, 10, 30 weeks, and then transition into higher ed. And schools. This is very important because students that come to you and study in schools, they stay on and then progress to university in your country. So this is the snapshot for Australia, and I think you can learn a lot of things from this slide, which is how Australia has built its success in international student recruitment. There's a lot of ways to recruit international students, but none of those work by itself as a standalone initiative. You actually have to find the right combination for you, for your city, your state, your country. The first one is directly within country representatives. Ankur touched on this. I myself did that. I was on a plane every 6 weeks. You go to countries, you speak with students, you speak with parents, and you convince them to come to your university. Is it effective? Yes, it is effective, but it's also incredibly expensive, incredibly time consuming. It's polluting the world because I was traveling all across the world, but also you cannot be everywhere at any point in time. You can only be in one place for that particular expo. So it is effective? Yes, it is, but it's not very efficient. Education agents, look, I've got to be honest here, some of those are a little bit dodgy, but the good ones are actually great because they allow you to be in multiple places all at the same time. And you might have heard of super agents or agent aggregators. What they've done is the market is now dominated by 3, 4, maybe 5 big players that are swallowing up everything else and taking the lion's share of the market. I'm still not sure this is the right way to do it, but what super agents allow you to do is to have access to a very large network of agents that allow you to be present everywhere in the world through their agent network. There is peer-to-peer recruitment, which is very, very effective because it's when you use your students, your alumni as referrals, as the people that represent you either on a digital platform or face-to-face. They can build that authentic trust that future students and parents are after. There's a number of digital platforms out there. I'm not advocating for any of those, but again, the concept is you can be everywhere all the time. So having a digital platform or multiple digital platforms allow you to be in multiple places all at once. You can engage future students 24/7, 365 days a year. Articulation agreements. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but a lot of Australian universities build agreements with Chinese, Indian, European universities, where the concept is maybe, sorry, I don't want to embarrass you, Bhakti, but for example, a student could study 2 years at Korea University and then articulate into the same course at RMIT for a further 2 years. What that happens is then that Korea get a student, RMIT get a student as well, and the student gets 2 degrees. And there's the international element here, whether they start at Korea and then transition to RMIT or vice versa. The international element is that they spend at least 2 years in an international setting studying their degree. Now, this can be very effective to recruit a very large number of students all in the same institution, but they take an awful lot of time to set up because you need to match all the different curricula. You need to make sure that everything is right. Those take a very long time. There's government sponsors, especially in the Middle East. I have a lot of contacts in Saudi Arabia where the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, all those ministries send their students out to other countries. The idea is that they study in another country and then they come back to Saudi and they take up senior roles within the government in the kingdom and make their country a better place. Again, you need to take a lot of time to build those relationships with government sponsors, but those prove very effective because once the government of Saudi Arabia decides to send you a large number of students, they do send you a large number of students. And the other thing that I would like to stress is, and this Australia has done an incredible job, is the international experience. When we used to go out as a university, we would never sell or promote the university itself or alone, but we'd rather promote Australia as the lifestyle, the culture, the food, the different things that you can do. An international student never picks a university in India purely based on their name. They actually pick the whole value proposition, the academic quality, but also the city, also the food, the culture, the whole experience. And this is, I promise, my last slide. Best practice that you can take a lot of from or examples from, or rather inspiration, is this. First of all, I said it at the beginning, Rome wasn't built in a day. You need to take a lot of time to build your international outreach. Deakin is incredibly successful in India, but they've been there for 25 years. And I promise you, when they started recruiting in India, they wouldn't recruit the maybe 2,000 students they're recruiting now. They would recruit 2 or 3. So it does take time to build up your capability and capacity. We live in a multi-touch point outreach world. So all the things that I talked about earlier, none of them works by itself. You need to bring them all together and find the right combination that works for you. But the idea is you can't expect to go to a country, speak to a student, and they'll come to you. They'll do their own research on digital platforms. They'll want to talk to an agent. They'll want to talk to their peers. They'll want to have a lot of information before they make their decision. So you need to augment your exposure across multiple platforms. Invest time in building relationships. I won't touch on this, but we are in the relationship management business. So you need to build those relationships with agents, with your students and parents, with institutions, with government sponsors as well. Ankur touched on this, the right ecosystem. You need support from your government as well. What we have in Australia is post-study work rights. What that means is that if a student completes at least 2 years of study in Australia, they can stay another 2, sometimes 3, sometimes 4 years in Australia upon completion of their degree. That is an incredibly appealing offer for a student because they have the opportunity, yes, to study in Australia, but then to stay and apply or put into practice what they learned in class. So they have full work rights upon completion of their degree. The combination of a degree plus the ability to stay in that country for a number of years to work is an incredibly alluring one for an international student. Quantity is important, but don't forget quality. The academic quality of your students, the international ones, but also in the especially diversity. So you recruit a lot of students from Africa, from countries in the subcontinent. Do look at other countries as well in Southeast Asia, maybe Latin America. Why not? Even students from the Western world that are a bit more adventurous and they really want to see India as a cultural experience for them. Your student and alumni are the best assets. I linked an article there, but really this is to say that you can leverage your students and alumni as the authentic asset. There is a moment in which your future students, whether they are in Mongolia or the Philippines, will want to speak with someone who actually is studying at your university to be able to make an informed decision as to whether they want to go there. And please, this is maybe the most important takeaway today. There is strength in numbers. You have more than 1,000 universities, 40,000 private colleges. Do negotiate when you go to expos around the world as a country. Promote India first, then your state, then your university. That's how you get a huge amount of students interested in coming to India. And then through your marketing and outreach, you can make sure that they come to you versus one of your competitors. But don't expect to go to a country and start recruiting students by simply representing your university. You have to find a way to collaborate, which is what this group is about, to be able to recruit students. That's me. Thanks, Ankur.
Thank you, Luca. That was wonderful. I mean, you summed it up really nicely. Thank you so much for sharing that presentation. And usually it was really helpful for us. So really appreciate your efforts. May I now invite John? John, can you talk about from the US universities perspective? How do you look at internationalization?
Sure. Thank you, Ankur, and thank you, Luca, for those wonderful presentations and notes on your systems within your country. I unfortunately did not prepare any slides. Partly, like Luca said, I'm not a big believer in slides, but they do help move the conversation along. I do have a website that kind of goes over some of the numbers that you brought up, in your presentations. And let me just see if I can get it really quick. This one is Open Doors. They pretty much track student mobility from a U.S. perspective. You can see we have almost 1 million international students in our country. We send a much smaller number overseas, and only about 15,000 students go overseas to gain credit from around the world. And then the scholars piece are those that are coming here to do research for the most part. So this is Open Doors. It's produced by an organization called IIE. Again, they track student mobility, and we have a great number of students, much larger number of students coming to the U.S. But I kind of wanted to highlight my conversation about recruiting out of the United States. So if you're an international university, how might you come about, finding students? We operate on this funnel model that Lucas shared as well. You want to start with the leads, and there are certainly a couple of organizations that will sell you names of U.S. students. So that lead buy is a way a lot of universities in the United States might recruit U.S. students. Is they'll purchase a certain number of names, and then from those names, they're able to market their programs, their campus, their student life, and of course their career access as well for after graduation. That return on investment piece, I think, is a very big talking point for a lot of U.S. universities in the United States to U.S. students. From an international perspective, the major organization that guides a lot of this work is something called NACAC, NACAC. This NACAC, they have an annual fair or kind of professional development each year. It varies from city to city around the U.S. And I've attended one up in Toronto, Canada before, so it is has some outside the U.S., but their main event in the fall, their major professional universities, because that's kind of the major space where a lot of U.S. schools, both at the secondary level and at the tertiary level, will come together for a number of presentations and even a fair to kind of demonstrate. And some international schools will attend that major NACAC event in the fall. Under NACAC, there are regional representations or regional membership organizations, and this is certainly something to consider, that there's an international ACAC, so an international ACAC. And that's where a lot of international universities will go to just collaborate. But as the name implies, it's international ACAC. So it's really a nice conference that they have in the summer. Typically at a U.S. university, but it also gets up into Canada. I attended a conference at Western in Western Ontario, Western University in Western Ontario. One of the years the conference was there. It's a way, again, to kind of be at a space where secondary school counselors from around the world and tertiary university admission representatives kind of get together and share, share their tactics or share different events and recruitment initiatives that they might be participating in. So that's the International ACAC. And again, that's another resource that international universities, I think, can find a space in order to promote their programs to a global audience. And I think that's key, that maybe some Indian universities attend this conference, and not only can they attract students from the US, but they're also attracting students because they're counselors from all over the world looking for good opportunities for their students to achieve that tertiary education. So that kind of really is one of the major kind of spaces to really interact with universities and recruit students. NACAC also has fairs, like student recruitment fairs in cities throughout the United States. So if you're interested in attracting, a secondary school student out of the U.S., that they will have like a student recruitment event in Boston and Philadelphia and New York and Chicago and Los Angeles. Unfortunately, the United States is a large country, so sometimes recruiting on the ground, will take you in a great variety of cities, maybe. So that's an opportunity as well. To kind of talk about what Luca brought up and maybe attracting more international students, to India, because I concur there's a lot to offer a student there. I've been fortunate enough to be recruiting students out of India to come to the U.S. since 2005, and I think it's a wonderful place for student experiences and campuses and beautiful, diverse areas throughout the country. So I can certainly speak to these resources and help anyone in this community in greater detail if you have interest. And lastly, I'm fortunate to be traveling to India in January next month with visits to Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad, and Bangalore. And I'd be more than happy to share a cup of chai with any of you or talk about ways that we can collaborate together. So thank you, Ankur, for allowing me to speak for that period of time. And this is a wonderful opportunity to engage with colleagues in India. So thank you.
Thank you so much, John, for sharing your expertise. I think you talked about International ACAC. I think that's a very good organization. Actually, in 2015, I started my international outreach from International ACAC. And I mean, I think I have attended 4 conferences. I mean, I was one at the Canadian one. I have been to US, I think 3 times for the annual conference. I think that's the best platform that we have for international engagement. And when I went there, I mean, to International AC, as I was the only Indian institution for at least 5 years, only Indian university to come to International ACAC. And when I used to talk about my experience at International ACAC, I used to talk to my colleagues here in India. The problem with them was that traveling to US was a big task, and not everybody's management had the same vision that my had at that point. So I was lucky enough to be working in that organization that let me do the work that is required and give me the time that is required to build international outreach. And then subsequently, I also got involved with hosting the regional forum. International ACAC hosted a regional forum in India for the first time in 2018, which was hosted at Nirja Modi School, South Asia Regional Institute, which I was part of the organizing committee. So yeah, International ACAC, if anybody is here looking at international outreach, you should start with International ACAC. But do remember that participating in International ACAC automatically will not lead to immediate recruitment. It is a long-term process, as both Luca and John mentioned here. So quickly, thank you so much, both the speakers, for sharing your thoughts and expertise. One from Australia and one from US. Now I know there were other people also that were very interested in talking about this topic. So I can see Gagan and Devesh here who had expressed interest in talking about this topic. If you have certain points that you want to share, probably Gagan, you can start first, and then we go to Devesh. So Dr. Gagan, you can.
Thank you, Ankur. So my perspective is from Germany. I studied my master's there, did PhD, and worked there at Mercedes-Benz for about 10 years in Germany. And now in the education field, as a German education consultant in India, and the company name is Yes Germany. So about Germany, we have seen the similar trend. So I'm in this from last 8 years, and 8 years back there were about 8,000 students going from India to Germany, and now this trend has increased by threefold. Now it's almost 35,000 per year, and next year it is 50,000. So we can see there is a huge increase in this segment. Especially Germany is famous for the technical programs and very economic fees. So if I say the fee structure what Germany has, when they get the students of a talented student, like have about 80% or more, then they get 100% scholarship. They don't have to pay anything. They just have to pay only the university, only $300 or $400. That's it. Only the living cost is there. Second point here, there's a huge demand of jobs. So these are the two major things which are bringing this Germany.
So
yeah, Ankur.
So, Dr. Gagan, I just want to ask one thing quickly because I'm conscious of the time. Uh, Are the German universities looking to collaborate with Indian universities for certain articulation programs, or I mean, is that also on the radar? I mean, apart from sending students to Germany, how can Indian institutions also look at, collaborating with German universities and probably having some German students over and then sending Indian students to Germany? I mean, is there any opportunity? How do you see that
Yes,
field?
but it is very similar what we see the trends in Australia and America. The numbers are less, but there are a lot of exchange programs which has started from last 5 years. So the universities are having the tie-ups and they are sending like 50 students to Germany for one semester, and the same university is sending 50 students to Indian university, but not as a
Super.
100% recruitment exchange program. It has started.
Yeah, yeah. I think that is an area that we can look at here in this forum, right? Perfect. Anything else, Dr. Khan, you want to share quickly?
Thanks,
Perfect.
Ankur.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Gagan, for being here with us and sharing your expertise. Really helpful to bring in the German perspective. So we have heard US, Australia, Germany. Devesh, you wanted to share something from
Yes,
your
very briefly, I would
understanding.
like to just talk about my experience working with this countries in the Middle East and in Nepal and Bangladesh. So, first of all, thanks, Luca, John, Ankur, and Gaganji for sharing your perspectives. Our approach has been a little different when we approach to schools and communities across different regions. So we build a network or sort of a database of schools, Indian high schools in countries like UAE or Qatar or Dubai, Singapore, and we very specifically reached out to those schools and those community instead of reaching out to the broader schools of across these countries. And I think that has worked out pretty well. We run a scholarship program in India, and we were lucky enough to get Indian families or Indian applicants in these countries. So not the students or the natives of those countries, but Indian families, and they are very well connected over there. So the propagation of the idea was much faster in these countries. And when it comes to we recently opened a program to Nepal and Bangladesh, and for some reason we have seen that Nepal has been much more receptive as compared to Bangladesh. So that is again a little insight that we saw when we opened to when we opened our programs to these countries. So that's my two bit. I've heard so many except expert views, so I don't think there is a lot much new insights that I can add. But thanks, Ankur.
So thank you so much, Devesh, for sharing that perspective. I mean, that is very important. I mean, I when I started doing international outreach, I mean, at one point of time, my forte was not school outreach. I didn't used to go to schools. I only used to go to expos. But very fast, I realized in first couple of years that if you depend only on expos for your recruitment, then you're becoming dependent on, as one of my friends was saying, only on one particular country or a one particular agent who can start and stop the tap as and when he or she. And somebody was mentioning, I mean, agents can be very dubious. I mean, that's a line that I have realized myself long back. I mean, you bank on one agent and another university comes in and pays him maybe more commission or offers him some better deal. He can easily rub you off. He will ask you for marketing budgets. You will keep giving him marketing budgets. At the end of the year, you will have a sorry face. It is very tempting to say, you go to a agent. I remember in my early days when I was with an institution called APJ. At that point of time, we were very interested in recruiting students from Afghanistan. So there was this one agent in Lajpat Nagar. Lajpat Nagar is known as the Afghan center in India. I mean, a lot of Afghani people come and stay in Afghan center, Lajpat Nagar. And there was this one guy who, my boss, I was starting early. He said, go and meet this guy. He has a lot of contacts in Afghanistan. He can get us maybe 30 students like this. So this is a case study of how not to do international outreach. Okay, I'm sharing my own experience. So I went and met this guy in Lajpat Nagar a couple of times, and I found him to be a genuine guy. He was running a full consultancy, a lot of Afghani students coming to his office. So he said, okay, why don't we uh, give me X amount of money as marketing. I'll do a marketing campaign in Afghanistan. At the end of it, I promise you'll get 20 students. And being a gullible international outreach expert, I got the approvals done, and because my boss had referred him, I said, okay, let's do it. It's the easy way out. He's promising me 20 students and X amount of money. And you know how many students he gave me? Zero. Nothing. He was never to be seen after that. He never picked my call after that. So I quickly realized that banking on agents is a very risky business until unless you have some, I mean, years and years, or there are those few people that you can bank upon. Otherwise, I mean, they can just be fly by night operators and you can't do anything. I mean, they will tell you 10 reasons why they couldn't get you students, and they'll tell you, okay, next year we'll do it. Who will be there by next year? I mean, that's an interesting story. So I started building school outreach, Devesh, like you are doing. And I really felt that that is the organic way of doing things and having your own connections. But that was 8 years back, actually. Nowadays, I see the craziness of everybody wanting to go to schools and the principals getting, annoyed by everybody that wants to come to their school, especially in Middle East. I mean, Middle East as a market, I mean, if we talk about Middle East, I mean, everybody lands up in Dubai to do international outreach in Middle East. And everybody says, I've been to Dubai, I've done Middle East GCC outreach. No, you have not. I mean, you go to Kuwait, you go to Qatar, you go to Oman, and each country in these Middle East has its own differentials. I mean, Oman does not have private school. It only has Indian community schools. So you should know that. Dubai has its own academic city, which has 50 universities. I mean, Dubai schools are approached daily by those 50 university reps there. So if you are going from India or US or UK or Canada, I mean, you being there for 2 days doesn't make any sense. I mean, the principals are being raised daily by the university reps that are there in Dubai, and I know those people. I mean, some of them are on the community also. I mean, they are now looking towards India to do outreach because they are tired of because they are not getting response from Dubai schools or the UAE schools. So if you go to schools in Sharjah, Ras Al Khaimah, and Al Ain, I've been to all those cities also. There are few good schools there that you can recruit from. But now, as competition is increasing, those schools are also now very hard to get into. If I look back 8 years back when I started, it was easier. So because we were the only few ones that were doing it. So that was my ranting. Sorry, I just took some of what you said and I said, yeah, that is my experience. But yeah, so Bhakti is here. Bhakti, you want to share something, and then we can probably open it up for everybody, please. I mean, we are not only 5 of us here on camera. I mean, there are good 30 odd people here. Please switch on your cameras. As I said, this is not a monologue. All of you can come and share your yeah, everybody, you can share your thoughts, you can share anything that you want to share. I mean, this is a, we are not going to judge you by what you say here. So Bhakti, over to you, and then you can take it forward.
Yeah. I mean, come on, outreach professionals, visibility is everything. How can you switch your cameras off and expect to be like noticed? What is this? Switch on your cameras. Okay, so I had a great time. I think I joined a few minutes late, but it was very useful to understand different perspectives. I think, needless to say, time is always short for conversations like this. So we can probably get into greater detail later, knowing that there is interest now. I think, Ankur, maybe you can plan internationalization from a destination perspective and internationalization from a source perspective. And then also, how do you sort of make sense of both of them together? Because there's also a temporary internationalization, which does not require a university to provide infrastructure for full-time students, but can, be done in terms of exchange programs or whatever, or any of those kind of experiences. And I think a lot of Indian universities, especially because I've worked with one, I think there is a little bit of a inferiority complex that a lot of us suffer from, simply because we feel that, sending students abroad is what we do. But, why would a student from North America or, any of the Caucasian countries want to come and study in India, which I find that I understand where that comes from, but I think it's time that we sort of start changing that, because the kind of, education that we are offering is absolutely phenomenal in India. One last thing is, because as someone who tried to champion international outreach, I think it's very daunting, for an outreach professional to do the planning, take the onus, and then, be expected to give results overnight, when I say overnight, within 1 year of outreach, it's not going to happen. And I think therefore one trick that I can share with outreach professionals here is, don't say that you want to go and do international outreach. Ask the university what is their internationalization vision. First of all, do they have one? And if they don't have one, you're literally just putting yourself up to be like nailed as at the stake. Trust me, because if you say nahi nahi ek baar Dubai jate to let's go once, let's see the market. No, please don't do that. Please don't do that. You need to have a conversation with your management. You need to understand if they are understanding the timelines of return on investment. It's very much like, I'm seeing Leonard here, and I'm tempted to take the example of the east of the country. The eastern part of the country is again something that a lot of universities are wary of going to, but they want to go to, but they want overnight results, and that doesn't happen. So imagine, now you're talking about the east is a hard market to crack. Imagine international markets, right? So I think have a conversation, serious understanding of what is your vision, what's your management's vision for internationalization, and ask them the question that if I do get even 2 students from these markets, do you have the ability to provide support services that these students need? And if you don't, then what are you going to do about it? So I rest my case there. Put them in the dock. Don't be the one to be in the dock.
Yeah, never get excited by seeing an email for Dubai Expo. Please don't do that. We all get excited when we are starting international outreach. Everybody says, "Okay, let's go and check." वो भक्ति ने सही बोला. Let's go and see what is there. अरे no, nothing is there. You are going to burn your hands. You have to have a strategy in place to do things. I have been on those. I mean, I'm talking about 2013 when I started doing international outreach. I used to, when I was young, I used to get excited by these invitations. And not only me, there are about 8, 10 of others. I mean, that were doing those international. I still remember I landed in Jakarta for an international expo. And me being me, early me, I mean, I went there and I was like, okay, let's recruit Indonesian students. I'm happy that I'm here now. So I went to the expo. And there were 8, 10 of us. There was an India pavilion. So we were there. We were standing with our brochures. Very happy. Today we are the front runners of Indian education in Indonesia. You know what happened when the students came in? Not a single one of them was able to read our brochures because nobody spoke English. And for 3 days we were there, not a single student came that could speak English. And when I see people still looking at Indonesia as a market, still today the basics remain the same. Nobody there speaks English. It's an agent driven market. Whoever is going out of Indonesia is going through an agent. So these were the things that we should have known beforehand. But once I landed in Jakarta in 2013, I got to understand that. And that is where I learned my lesson the hard way, which I'm sharing you lightly here, but probably I should charge like a consultancy for this. This is like my experience. I paid money to understand this. So somebody paid money and I had to face a lot of backlash for being in Jakarta for doing nothing. But yeah, small things like this. Nepal market. I mean, Nepal market, everybody gets excited by numbers. Nepal market is those who know here, who have been to Nepal, know it's a very tough market to operate in. It's a very, 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 agent-oriented market. And if you ever have been to an expo in Nepal, more than students, you will get agents visiting your stall, and they'll say, "Tie up with me, tie up with me." More than 9 out of 10 times, those are scams. They'll ask for marketing budget. You'll give marketing budget. Nothing will come out of it. I mean, Bhutan, everybody gets excited about Bhutan. Bhutan, you can't move an inch without having the government support. I mean, the Bhutanese government with you. And Bangladesh, the major market of Dhaka, again, a very competitive market. A lot of students are from there, love to go to top ranking institutions in US or Canada, immigration market. Not the numbers that you see, most of them or many of them are ICCR scholarships. I mean, if you're looking at those numbers that I just showed you, you should also be aware that a lot of those numbers are from Indian government scholarships, which is called the ICCR scholarships, which is given by Ministry of HRD every year. And South Asia has the most number of ICCR scholars. So if you see, a lot of the leaders of these countries come from our Indian university system because they have been sponsored by the Indian government to come and study. And a lot of scholars still do. So, I mean, those are the things that I felt. Any questions? I mean, I really
Yeah,
want people to ask questions.
we have two hands up, Ashish and
Yeah,
Neeraj.
So hi, I wanted to actually share my experience. My name is Shalini. I
yeah, go
handled the
ahead.
Nepal market long back before COVID, actually. And Ankur, you are right. It's a agent-oriented market. So I spent a 1 month over there settling new centers for my one of the companies, and it was completely waste of time and waste of money, I should say, and my efforts also. Schools, I'm sure you must be aware, 12th is in the colleges there, the 12th grade. So they don't want to even run directly through the universities or the companies, ed tech companies. They trust these agents, and they don't trust directly to the universities coming out of
Yeah,
Nepal.
yeah.
So Nepal market is completely different than the rest of the world. I think so.
And you are from which institution, Shalini? If you
I'm
want to
from
share
Indian
that.
School of Hospitality.
Oh, the Indian School of Hospitality. Yeah, I remember. Perfect, perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that. Ashish, you want to share something?
Yes, I am audible, please.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I will want to give a little technology perspective to this whole scenario. I mean, there were some interesting insights shared by you, Ankur, especially about the challenges, as well as couple of them being highlighting is about the experiences that the students on campus receive, the international students on campus receive, act as a word of mouth for future students. And similarly, one of the points that Luca suggested is the carbon footprint that you take along while you travel extensively so much. Um, Pre-pandemic, technology never allowed these real-time experiences to be given to any potential student. But now, post-pandemic, technology has taken a giant leap. And some of you who don't know me, we haven't met out here. I am the co-founder of Class Avatar, whereby we empower educational institutions to harness the power of metaverse. So we have been working with almost top 20 Indian private universities in India, private MBA and engineering colleges, and outreach was one of the key challenges. So what we do is basically build digital twins in the metaverse, whereby you, like for example, Ankur, you being out here in India, and you want to reach to any student across the world, can actually take them on a live campus experience, make them speak with current students, make them speak with professors in real time. And this is something that is absolutely invaluable when it comes to outreach. If any of you are in Bombay or Delhi, more than happy to actually make you experience this,
Perfect.
and
So,
reach out to me.
so Ashish, I'm sorry,
Sure.
we have to be mindful of the time also. I mean, there's a couple of minutes left.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, we can come back to you later. But yeah, before I go to Neeraj, I mean, I will close in another 5 minutes. We just want to take a what we should call this, a screenshot or a selfie. Everybody who wants to be on the screenshot on LinkedIn, please switch on your cameras. I mean, generally it
It's a
works. I don't know how
screen
many.
fee. It's a screen fee, yaar. Call it a
स्क्रीन
screen
फी
fee.
अच्छा मुझे नहीं पता है क्या बोलते हैं मैं तो स्क्रीनशॉट बोलता हूँ so everybody who wants to take a good screenshot and be featured on LinkedIn, let's do that right now and then we'll go back to the session. This is so exciting. Perfect. Anybody
Okay,
else?
just
अच्छा नीतू just walked in, so नीतू को भी ले लेते हैं ना, फोटो भी रह
हाँ हाँ
जाएगी.
अरे ये
So here we go.
It looks a
Smile.
full house at least.
Chalo, thank you. Yeah, so going
Actually,
back to the
very quickly. We'll start planning city meets, okay? So like you were saying right now, Ashish, anyone is in Delhi, Bombay, etc., we'll start doing city meets and city chapters. I thought I'll forget saying that. So yeah, over to you.
perfect. Thank you, Bhakti. Neeraj, yeah, you wanted to come in now.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for this wonderful presentations by the speakers and you also, Ankur, for adding a lot of insights. So my question is based on one of the insights which you shared, which is like uh, agents which cannot dubious agent, like that's the word which caught my attention the most. So any suggestions on how to avoid these and how to identify these, like avoid after.
Anybody who asks for marketing budget from you on the first don't go for them. Anybody who is already working with some big institution in India, They will not come with you for years. Check with them. I mean, what kind of institutions they have been sending students to. Any bite of agent that has not been sending students to India, again, is an agent that you should not be easily trusting. Word of mouth. I mean, talk to your. One of the things that I find surprising is that we in outreach do not talk to each other. We feel that there is some top secret in our head and we know this agent only and we are only going to talk to him and nobody will get to know this guy and we are. नहीं ऐसे नहीं होता है. I mean, I was truly amazed when I used to travel to Nepal and all these places. Nobody wanted to share insights. I mean, like I shared today, nobody would want to do that because they felt, oh, they will take my agent or they will know the expertise. So just try and share. So how did I tackle this problem? I started sharing on my own. I started posting on LinkedIn my experiences. This is what I felt. These are the schools I went to. I mean, people. अब वो rocket science तो नहीं है. I mean, it's not rocket science. I mean, anybody can do that experience. Maybe it will take couple of times for him to visit that country to have that insight. But ठीक है, I'm doing it for my own. And then people are generally helpful. We are all good human beings. I mean, generally speaking. So we help each other. So that's the only way I operate. I used to talk to a lot of people. I remember Ecor insight before I go. I mean, I remember when I started my international outreach, there used to be this amazing gentleman by the name of Dr. Ashok Daryani. I mean, he's still with the university called Sharda University. Dr. Ashok was a guy who I think did phenomenal job in terms of recruiting international students. So he went to Nigeria. I think Luca was talking about government tie-ups. He went to a city in Nigeria called Kano or Kaduna, some small city, and he tied up with the government there. And he, in one shot, he could get 100 students from Nigeria to Sharda. Big news in international student recruitment in India 2013. And everybody wanted to rush to Nigeria to get the gold mine and get another 100 students and get their appraisals done. And you know what happened? I mean, a lot of universities went, not even one could get the same 100 students from their institutions because that thing had already been done and nobody talked to Dr. Ashok, including me for that matter, when I was young. I mean, he was pretty senior. I didn't have access to him. But if I would have been on the same page, I would have probably picked up my call and talked to him and said, अरे यार 100 students कैसे ले आए आप? हम पहले से पहले मैं नाइजीरिया का वीजा कटाऊं, फ्लाइट पकड़ूं, वहां जाऊं, उससे पता करूं. So you have to be open. I mean, that is what we all have to help each other. Or I mean, that's the only advice I have for you. ठीक है. और anybody else? I mean, we are going to close in next 2 minutes. Any last thing anybody wants to add? अगर नहीं है तो 2 मिनट भी जल्दी क्लोज कर देंगे. किसी को कुछ नहीं बोलना तो. Generally, this is a talkative group. I feel TOC पे जितने भी लोग हैं बोलना पसंद करते हैं. Outreach वाले. Anybody wants to say anything? I'm happy to give you those 2 minutes. If not, thank you so much for being here. Luca, you have some last words that you want to share with us?
No, I'm going to add to your comment that referrals are incredibly important.
Yeah.
So don't get a new agent that no one has ever worked with because chances are that they are dodgy. The second one is do review their performance every 6 months.
Yeah.
If they don't send you a student, just cut them off. That's it. Good luck and goodbye. That's what I used to do at RMIT.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Luca. I think that's about it for the session today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I hope you had a wonderful time. You learned something. I learned a lot of things from both Luca and Bhakti and John. I think wonderful presentation, Gagan. I think Devesh, all of you had some really insightful talk. And let's keep this community spirit, learning, sharing, unlearning together. And that is how we grow. So thank you so much. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a good evening and have a good Christmas weekend. Bye. Bye. Happy holidays.
Bye. Yeah. Merry Christmas to everyone.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Bye. Bye.